It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday when the email hit my inbox. The subject line read, "Urgent Child Support Modification Request." My stomach dropped. After 2 years of divorce, I thought Amanda and I had finally found our rhythm. We were not friends, but we were civil. We co-parented Emma, our 6-year-old daughter, without much drama. I opened the email and the first line made my blood run cold. They wanted to triple my child support payments, from $1,200 a month to $3,600. I sat there staring at my laptop screen trying to make sense of it. I thought we had moved past all the drama. I was wrong. Before I tell you how this whole mess unfolded and what I discovered about their plan, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with a difficult co-parenting situation, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear how this story ends, because what started as a simple request turned into something I never saw coming. Here is what happened. Let me back up and give you some context. Amanda and I met when we were 22, fresh out of college and full of hope. We got married at 24, had Emma when we were 26. For a while, life was good. Nothing extraordinary, just normal, happy, ordinary life. I worked as a network engineer, pulling in around $75,000 a year. Amanda worked as a marketing coordinator, making about $50,000. We had a modest house in the suburbs, a manageable mortgage, and a life that felt stable. But somewhere around year 7 of our marriage, things started to shift. We stopped talking about anything meaningful. Our conversations became logistics. Who is picking up Emma? Did you pay the electric bill? What time is her dentist appointment? We were roommates who happened to share a kid. By year 8, we both admitted what we had been avoiding. We had fallen out of love. There was no affair, no explosive fight, no dramatic betrayal. At least that is what I thought at the time. We just were not us anymore. The divorce was finalized 2 years ago, right after Emma turned 4. We agreed to split custody 50-50. I would have her every other week plus some holidays. The court calculated my child support obligation at $1,200 a month based on both our incomes and the custody arrangement. It was not cheap, but it was fair. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment across town, gave Emma the bedroom, and slept on the pull-out couch in the living room. It was not glamorous, but it was ours. Those first few months as a single dad were tough. I had to learn how to braid hair, pack school lunches that Emma would actually eat, and navigate the politics of first-grade playdates. But I loved it. Every morning I had with her, every bedtime story, every Saturday morning, making chocolate chip pancakes, it all mattered. Emma became my anchor. She was the reason I got up early, worked hard, and kept pushing forward. My relationship with Amanda post-divorce was polite but distant. We communicated through text about schedules and school events. She seemed fine. I seemed fine. We had moved on, or so I thought. That email from her lawyer shattered whatever peace I had built. I read through it 3 times trying to understand the justification. Increased cost of living, the child's growing needs, maintaining an appropriate standard of living. It all sounded reasonable on the surface, but something felt off. Emma was not sick. She did not have any special needs that required extra money. She was a healthy, happy kid who liked dolls and playground swings. Why would Amanda suddenly need triple the amount? I barely slept that night. I kept running the numbers in my head. My $3,600 a month meant $43,200 a year. That was nearly 60% of my take-home pay after taxes. If I had to pay that, I would be left with maybe $2,000 a month to cover rent, utilities, food, gas, and everything else. I would be broke. Worse than broke. I would be drowning. The next morning, I called Amanda directly. I needed to hear her explanation in her own words, not filtered through legal jargon. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was clipped defensive before I even said anything. I asked her straight up, "Why do you need triple the child support?" She sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "Emma needs more now, Kirk. Dance classes, tutoring, better clothes. She is growing up." I pushed back. "I already pay for half of Emma's extracurriculars. You never mentioned she needed tutoring." When did that become a thing? There was a pause. Then Amanda said, well, things have changed. My lawyer says I am entitled to more. The way she said entitled made my jaw clench. I asked if something had happened, if she was struggling financially. Her response was cold. Why do you care? We are divorced, Kirk. Just talk to your lawyer. This is not personal. But it felt personal. Very personal. The call ended badly, and I sat there with more questions than answers. Amanda had never been the type to demand things. During our marriage, she was reasonable, even frugal. This aggressive push for more money did not match the person I thought I knew. Something had changed. I just did not know what yet. I decided I needed to figure out what was going on. Over the next few days, I started piecing things together. I thought back to the last 6 months. Amanda had seemed different during pickups and drop-offs. She dressed nicer, wore more makeup, seemed happier. At the time, I figured she was just moving on, maybe dating someone. Good for her. I was not jealous. We were done. But then I remembered something Emma had mentioned a few weeks ago. We were driving home from school and she said Uncle Brad took us to the zoo last weekend. It was so fun, Daddy. He bought me a giant stuffed panda. I had brushed it off. I assumed Brad was just a friend of Amanda's, maybe someone from work. Kids call all adults uncle or aunt. It did not seem like a big deal. Now, though, I started connecting dots. I pulled out my phone and opened social media. Amanda and I had unfollowed each other a year ago, part of the whole moving on process. But I created a fake account, something generic, and searched for her profile. Her page was not public, but I could see some tagged photos. And there he was. Brad. In one photo, Amanda and Brad stood on a beach at sunset, his arm around her waist. The caption read, "Perfect weekend getaway." In another, they were dressed up at some fancy restaurant, wine glasses raised. Brad looked about 35, clean-cut, wearing an expensive suit. And in the background of one photo, I could see a silver Mercedes. This guy was not just some casual boyfriend. He had money. Real money. I dug deeper. I found Brad's LinkedIn profile. Brad Thompson, founder and CEO of Thompson Developments, a real estate company. His profile was full of buzzwords: multi-million-dollar projects, expanding portfolio, strategic acquisitions. I clicked through to a local business magazine that had interviewed him 6 months ago. The article talked about his success, his recent purchase of commercial properties, and his plans to develop luxury condos downtown. This guy was loaded. Then I found something that made my stomach turn. Public property records showed Brad had purchased a house 4 months ago. The address was in an upscale neighborhood across town. The sale price, $1.2 million. I pulled up the listing photos. It was massive. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a pool in the backyard, and a 3-car garage. I remembered what Emma had said about Uncle Brad having a big house with a pool. This was not just Amanda dating someone. She was living with him. In a $1 million house. And yet she was asking me for triple the child support because she needed more money for Emma. It did not add up. The next weekend, Emma stayed with me. I was careful not to interrogate her, but I asked casual questions. So how is Uncle Brad? Emma lit up. Oh, he is really nice, Daddy. He bought me a huge dollhouse with like 100 pieces. And his house is so big. I have my own room there with a princess bed. My heart sank, but I kept my tone light. That sounds fun, sweetheart. Do you stay there a lot? She nodded. Yeah, Mommy and I live there now. Uncle Brad said we are going to be a real family soon. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Not because I was jealous. Amanda could date whoever she wanted. But the pieces were falling into place, and I did not like the picture they formed. Amanda was living with a millionaire. Emma had her own room in a mansion. They were clearly serious, possibly even talking about marriage. So why on earth did Amanda need to triple my child support? Emma kept talking, oblivious to my internal spiral. She told me about fancy dinners they went to, about Brad's boat, about how Mommy said they might go to Disneyland for Christmas. Every detail she shared made me angrier. Not at Emma, never at Emma, but at Amanda, at Brad, at whatever game they were playing. That night after I put Emma to bed, I sat on my couch and tried to think logically. If Amanda was about to marry Brad, she would have access to his income. They would be a household. She would not need my money to support Emma, unless there was something else going on. Unless this was not about Emma's needs at all. I needed to talk to my lawyer. I called my lawyer Richard Harris first thing Monday morning. I had used him for the divorce, and he was sharp. No nonsense, the kind of guy who did not waste time. I explained the situation, the demand for triple child support, Amanda living with Brad, Brad's wealth, the timeline of everything. Richard listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, he said, "Let me look into their filing documents. Something does not smell right here." 3 days later, Richard called me back. "Kirk, you need to come to my office. We need to talk." I drove over during my lunch break, my nerves on edge. Richard had printouts spread across his desk. He pointed to the petition Amanda's lawyer had filed. In here, they claim her living expenses have increased significantly. They list higher rent, increased childcare costs, all the standard stuff. But here is the thing. They do not mention Brad at all. Not once. I frowned. Is that legal? Can she just leave out the fact that she is living with someone? Richard nodded slowly. Technically, she does not have to disclose a boyfriend's income if they are not married. But if they are cohabitating and he is contributing to household expenses, that is a different story. And if she is misrepresenting her financial situation to the court, that is a problem. He pulled out another document. But here's where it gets interesting. I did some digging. I have a contact who works in family law on the other side of town. Turns out Amanda's lawyer sent an email to a financial advisor a few weeks ago. My contact saw it in a shared file system totally by accident. The email said, and I quote, "If we can secure the increased support before the marriage, it will not be recalculated based on household income." I stared at Richard. What does that mean? He leaned back in his chair. It means they are trying to game the system. If Amanda gets the court to approve the increased child support now before she marries Brad, that amount gets locked in. Once they are married, you would have to file a modification to lower it, which is expensive and time-consuming. And even then, courts are hesitant to reduce child support. They are betting you would not fight it. My hands clenched into fists. So this whole thing is a scam. They do not need the money. They just want to bleed me dry because they can. Richard nodded. That is exactly what it looks like. And here's the kicker. If Brad is as wealthy as you say, they probably figure $3,600 a month is pocket change to them. But to you, it is devastating. They want you to pay more so they never have to worry about money. Even though they already do not have to worry about money. I felt a surge of anger so intense I had to stand up and pace. How do we fight this? Richard smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who had just found a weak spot. We expose them. We gather evidence that Amanda is living with Brad. We show the court his income, his assets, the house. We prove she is misrepresenting her financial situation, and we make sure the judge knows they tried to manipulate the system. Over the next few weeks, Richard and I built our case. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Danny, who had done work for Richard before. Danny followed Amanda, and Brad documented their routines. He took photos of Brad dropping Emma off at school, of Amanda and Brad grocery shopping together, of them leaving the house every morning like a couple. It was all above board, nothing creepy, just establishing a pattern of cohabitation. I also requested Emma's school records. Turns out Amanda had updated Emma's primary address 4 months ago. The new address, Brad's house. That was proof she was not just visiting. She had moved in. Richard subpoenaed Brad's financial records, which Brad's lawyer tried to block, but the judge allowed it since it was relevant to the child support calculation. When those records came through, my jaw dropped. Brad's annual income was over $800,000. He owned properties worth millions. Amanda was living with someone who made more in a month than I made in a year. Richard filed our countermotion. We laid out everything, the cohabitation, Brad's income. The email about locking in child support before marriage? Amanda's misrepresentation of her financial situation. We asked the court to deny her request and to investigate whether she had committed fraud. It was aggressive, but I was done playing nice. They had tried to ruin me financially. Now it was my turn to fight back. The hearing was set for 2 months later. Those 2 months were torture. I went through the motions at work, spent time with Emma, but my mind was always on the case. Amanda and I barely spoke except for logistics. She had no idea I knew about her plan. I did not tip my hand. I wanted her to walk into that courtroom confident, thinking she had already won. The day of the hearing finally arrived. I wore my best suit, the one I had bought for job interviews years ago. Richard met me outside the courtroom. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. "Let us do this." We walked in, and Amanda was already there with her lawyer, a woman named Ms. Jennings, who had a reputation for being ruthless. Amanda looked calm, even a little smug. Brad was not there. Probably thought he did not need to be. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Judge Parker, called the hearing to order. Ms. Jennings went first. She painted a picture of Amanda as a struggling single mother who needed more support to give Emma a good life. She talked about rising costs, Emma's needs, the importance of stability. She was good. I had to give her that. She made it sound reasonable, even noble. Then it was Richard's turn. He stood up and I could see the shift in the room. Richard did not waste time with pleasantries. "Your Honor, the petitioner has failed to disclose critical information to this court. Ms. Amanda Hayes is currently cohabitating with Mr. Brad Thompson, a real estate developer with an annual income exceeding $800,000. She has been residing in his home valued at $1.2 million for the past 4 months. He pulled out the photos, the school records, the property documents. He laid them out one by one. Amanda's face went pale. Ms. Jennings tried to object, but Richard kept going. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that this petition was filed strategically." He produced the email. This correspondence between Ms. Jennings and a financial advisor clearly states the intent to lock in increased child support before the petitioner's marriage to Mr. Thompson, thereby avoiding any future recalculation based on household income. This is not about the child's needs. This is about financial manipulation. Judge Parker's expression hardened. She looked at Amanda. "Miss Hayes, are you currently residing with Mr. Brad Thompson?" Amanda hesitated. Miss Jennings whispered something to her. Finally, Amanda said, "Yes, Your Honor, but we are not married yet." Judge Parker cut her off. The court considers household income and resources, not just marital status. "Why did you not disclose this relationship in your petition?" Amanda stumbled over her words. "I did not think it was relevant. We are not married. It is not his responsibility to support my daughter." Judge Parker leaned forward. "But it is relevant to your financial situation, which is the basis of this entire petition. You claim you need increased support due to rising expenses, yet you are living in a home worth over $1 million with a man who earns significantly more than the respondent. How do you explain that Ms. Jennings tried to recover? Your Honor, my client's relationship status does not negate the child's needs." Judge Parker held up a hand. "I have reviewed the financial documents submitted by both parties. Mr. Hayes, the respondent, is already paying the calculated amount based on his income. The petitioner has not demonstrated any significant change in the child's needs that would warrant a tripling of support. Moreover, the evidence suggests this petition was filed in bad faith." She looked directly at Amanda. "Ms. Hayes, I am denying your request for increased child support. The current amount of $1,200 per month will remain in effect. Furthermore, I am warning you that misrepresentation in court filings is a serious matter. If I see any evidence of this behavior again, there will be consequences. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel came down. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. We had won. Richard clapped me on the shoulder. "Good job, Kirk." Amanda did not look at me. She grabbed her purse and walked out quickly, Ms. Jennings trailing behind her. I felt a wave of relief so intense I almost laughed. It was over. The weeks after the hearing were strange. Amanda and I did not speak beyond the necessary texts about Emma's schedule. I heard through mutual acquaintances that things between her and Brad had gotten tense. Apparently, Brad was not thrilled about the public airing of his finances or the implication that he was involved in a scheme. A month later, I heard they had called off their engagement. Amanda moved out of the mansion and into a smaller apartment. I did not feel victorious about that. I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that money had turned someone I once loved into someone I barely recognized. Emma thankfully seemed mostly unaffected. Kids are resilient like that. She adjusted to the new living situation, asked a few questions about why she did not see Uncle Brad anymore, but moved on quickly. My relationship with her remained strong. We still had our Saturday pancake mornings, our bedtime stories, our little routines. She was my world, and that had not changed. I kept working, kept saving. The money I would have lost to the inflated child support went into a college fund for Emma. I wanted her to have opportunities to not be burdened by the mistakes her parents made. I started seeing a therapist too, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to process everything in a healthy way. I learned a lot about boundaries, about protecting myself, about not letting bitterness take root. Looking back, I learned some hard lessons from this whole experience. First, never assume you know someone completely. People change, especially when money and security are on the line. Amanda was not a villain. She was not evil. She just made a choice driven by fear or greed or maybe a combination of both. Second, trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it probably is. I could have ignored that email, accepted the demand, and struggled for years. Instead, I dug deeper. I fought back, and I protected myself and Emma in the process. Third, do not let anger consume you. I was furious when I found out what Amanda and Brad were trying to do. But I channeled that anger into action, not into bitterness. I did not trash talk Amanda to Emma. I did not sabotage her relationship with our daughter. I stayed focused on what mattered, doing right by Emma and protecting my own future. There is a difference between standing up for yourself and becoming consumed by revenge. I chose the former. I also learned that the system, while imperfect, can work if you are willing to fight for fairness. I could have given up, assumed Amanda would win because she had a better lawyer, or because courts always side with mothers. But I gathered evidence, built a case, and let the truth speak for itself. Justice is not automatic, but it is possible. As for Amanda, I hope she learned something too. I do not wish her ill. I hope she finds stability and happiness for her sake and for Emma's. Emma deserves parents who are at peace, who can co-parent without animosity. We are not there yet, but we are getting closer. Time has a way of softening the sharp edges. A few months ago, Emma asked me why adults fight about money so much. I did not have a perfect answer. I told her that sometimes people get scared about the future, and they make choices that do not make sense. But I also told her that the most important thing is honesty and doing what is right even when it is hard. She nodded like she understood, even though she is only 6. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. I am grateful for where I am now. I have Emma. I have a job I am good at. I have an apartment that feels like home, even if it is small. I have peace of mind knowing I stood up for myself and did not let anyone take advantage of me. That is worth more than any amount of money. So, if you ever find yourself in a situation where something does not feel right, trust your gut. Dig deeper. Ask questions. Do not just accept what people tell you, especially when it comes to your finances and your rights. The truth always comes out eventually, and when it does, make sure you are on the right side of it. I did what I had to do, not for revenge. Not even for the money, really. I did it for the principle. For the idea that fairness still matters, that people should not be able to manipulate systems for their own gain at someone else's expense. And I did it for Emma to show her that her dad would always fight for what is right no matter how hard it gets. Whatever happens next in my life, I know I will handle it, because I have already been through the fire and I came out stronger. Not bitter, Not broken, just stronger. And that is all any of us can ask for. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to take advantage of you financially? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your stories. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this content. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel, I share more real-life stories like this one every week. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it, someone who is going through their own battle and needs a reminder that standing up for yourself is worth it. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this community. I wish you all the strength and courage to face whatever challenges come your way. Take care of yourselves and remember, the truth always wins in the end.